Hey friends, this is David Bedrick. I hope you're all doing well tonight. It's been a while since I've done a live video, and sat with you here. I didn't want to let this violence, hey Lucy, go by. So I thought I better do this. My energy has been low. Hey Holly, glad that you're here. My energy's low, forgive me for that, so to speak. Hey Marion, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and just say hello to people as a way of just letting people arrive. Hey Jeff, I know you're going through some big stuff, brother, and glad you're here. Shavani, yes, Shavani. I'm just settling into myself because my energy has been low, used emotional energy, I'm going to call it that. And a part of me didn't want to do this. I wrestled, before doing this tonight. Yes, no, a part of me is like, I'm tired, and something said, but you can't let certain things, hey, India and Janice, you can't let certain things just go by and not bear witness. And that's so precious of a calling to me, that idea of bearing witness, that I thought it doesn't matter what state I am, it doesn't matter if I have my stuff together, like I like to be more or less, have hey Adela, Kelly, a direction I want to take, but I think it's in my heart and I will lead with that. Some of you don't know me. I'm a process worker or process-oriented psychologist. Process work is a Jungian-based psychology in its root, started by Arnold Mindell, who was a physicist, and then Jungian analyst, includes body issues and shamanism and social justice issues, so it sort of took its root from Jung and other things, and then found its way in the last 25, 30 years. Hey, Julie. That's what I do. I write. I've written a couple of books. One is about psychology called Talking Back to Dr. Phil, which is a critique of popular psychology. A year and a half ago, I published Revisioning Activism, which is about psychology and activism. Hey, Anik, as I say it, Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. I post a lot on Facebook and manage a page there. I call it Manage a Page because I try to facilitate a dialogue. That's my thing. I like to give information, teach, and learn, but mostly I like to make a dialogue happens where community gets built and people get to know each other across lines of diversity. So that's a calling of mine. Black and white and gay and straight and trans and German and South African and Asian and etc., all trying to learn about each other and learn from each other. So that's my hope there. I published about 80 posts on Psych Today and some on Huffington Post and other areas. I have a private practice and I teach. Okay, I'm moving through quickly because it's not the most important thing, but I should say just a little bit about myself. So I'm slowing down because I want to enter a topic that is powerful, sensitive, vulnerable, furious, hurtful, triggering, those kinds of things. And when I do that as a counselor or here speaking to you, something in me says, slow down, David, because people will have feelings, and the feeling issue is so important. The thinking issue, the understanding issue is so important, but the feeling issue is, and we can talk about things quicker, I can talk about things quicker than we can feel about them. Some people are geniuses at feeling, and their feelings can move very quickly from one place to another, like a child's freedom. They're up, they're down, they're tired, they're angry, they're sad. But most of us adults, like myself, have slowed down around that, and we have had various suppressions around the flow of feeling, especially in a patriarchal culture, in a white culture that doesn't love feelings, that looks at feelings as a problem in a way to get over, that can mess you up and make your judgment less good. So that tells me, slow down. So I want to say some strong things, and I want to start off by saying some strong things. Strong things means I would like to say 3 or 4 abuses that have been named in the recent Pennsylvania grand jury in their report. Now, why do I want to say specific Hey, Catherine, details. Hey, Maureen, why do I want to say specific details? Because when looking at abuse, it's not only good to be abstract. One has to get grounded because abuse happens. It affects the body. It affects the emotions. It affects the psyche. It affects the spirit. It affects our minds. It affects us. It impacts us. And if we're too general, the body gets pulled out. The ow, ooh, the cringe, the fury, the things that rise up in proper reaction, in organic, healthy reaction to those things, gets left out. What's the problem with doing that? It's triggering to say strong things. And people have violences in their past. And people have witnessed violence in their past. And there are some people who are just sensitive regardless of what their past is. I don't want to bludgeon anybody. I don't want to provoke anybody to feelings that they need protection of. So I'm starting, I'm working off the post that I put up on Facebook yesterday. I'm starting with this trigger alert. I want to name 4 specific details of children abused by priests in the Catholic Church. I'm not only trying to pick on the Catholic Church. They are being outed, and it's a good thing. And it's a good thing for other things also. But let's hold that. So if this is going to be hard for you, it's going to take about 2 minutes. I'll wave my hand like this. If you want to shut off the audio, that'll mean I'm done. Okay? So you can walk away, you can silence. If not, hold yourself. Take a hand and hold it. Put a hand on a shoulder. It's really important. Touch is really important around violence. Even if it's just a hand on a shoulder, a hand on a face, something, touch that makes us human, that makes us grounded. And if you have a violent past, close your ears, walk away for a minute. You can always watch the tape in a few minutes from now if you miss it. Talk to a friend if you know somebody. Hey, this is hard for me. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. Let's say 5 or 10 seconds to decide how do you want to deal with hearing strong things in a way that cares for yourself. Hey, Roberta. Okay. Here we go. A priest raped a young girl in the hospital after she had her tonsils out. Girl's in the hospital getting her tonsils out. That's the moment that this priest chooses to violate and abuse, victimize somebody. Another priest tied up and whipped a child with leather straps. I'm already noticing it's hard for me to say those things. I say that and I notice tears start welling up my eyes and I clamp down on them because I want to stay with something. Clamping down on them. If I didn't, then I weep for a while. I say, I don't know that I can go further. I can, but there's a part of me that says, that's enough now. I can barely take that in. I'm going to skip one then to accommodate that concern I have. I'm going to take my 4 and turn them into 3. Another priest abused 5 sisters in the same family. One girl started when she was 18 months old. Okay. I'm leaving the detail for those of you who want to come back in. Touch your face, touch a hand, do something. Scream is a good thing to do. Ah! 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 Screaming is a good thing. Letting things go by without a reaction is not good for anybody. I'm not trying to model that in sticking with a talk. I'm not trying to model lack of reaction. But again, if we don't, hey Annika, if we don't give the detail, we're staying above a certain level. We're staying out of the photo from the war or the child who was burned, something that has to remind us what it looks like, or remind some of us, I should say. Some of you don't need any reminder. Okay, so I'm just going from my post now. I'm going to read a few things. A grand jury issued a report 2 days ago declaring that the Roman Catholic Church in one state, Pennsylvania, covered up child sexual abuse by more than 300 priests. 300 priests, one state of the United States. More than 1,000 victims were identified, more than 1,000 children. And they predicted that there are thousands more who won't come forward. You all understand why a person wouldn't come forward. Not many people want to come forward and speak. These were identified victims. Thousands more likely who don't come forward. One state of one country. Okay. When I first saw it and I wrote about it, I was just furious. I was wanting to do this video last night because I wanted to scream. Today I feel more grieved and saddened. My fury is there. It's a little bit to the side at the moment. Maybe it'll come back. But today I'm in this, I can't hear one more piece. No, stop it. Block it out. Don't make it happen. Somebody stop the whole thing. So I'm a little bit different than the fury that I had last night, and I thought I should come out yesterday so people can hear that. It should be witnessed with fury. Have that yourselves. Don't diminish that part of it, because I'm in a slightly different state, a more wincing state, a more agony state. It's a grief process. Waking up is a grief process. Waking up out of our innocence. Most of you know a lot already, but then you hear it, it touches again, reminds you again, wakens us up again. It's a grief process. Anger and depression and hope and bargaining and all those stages go on. Okay. And then I wrote yesterday, hey, nice to hear Sheila, Maureen. More infuriating, I wrote, than the abuse, for me, is the shame. Shame for me is a very specific thing. Shame means, I need my little pens. Shame for me means denial, dismissal, and blame. Shame for me is the way something is witnessed. So many of you have been to classes or heard me do talks. I want to give it to you quick because it's so important, because the word shame is not used in a way that I think is most useful. There's many uses of shame. People do great work, hey Andrea, make great work on shame. They talk about shame as a feeling. I don't talk about shame as a feeling. I talk about shame as an action, shaming. And what's the action? Here's a child. Here's a priest. This priest sexually abuses this particular child. An assault has happened. Deadly potential assault. Then there's something else. Priest, child. And then there's something else. Everybody who witnesses. In this case, the most essential witness is the Catholic Church itself, because there are people who find out about it who can bear witness. Bear witness means see it and do something and respond as if this is a real thing, as if there's a violence, as if there's a terrible assault has happened. I'm not walking down the street seeing a violence going, oh, well, I'm just doing my thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stopped. I don't deny it. That didn't happen. I don't dismiss it. That's not that big a deal. I don't blame the children. Maybe you did this, maybe you're that, maybe you're, I don't even want to say the words yet. Maybe you're causing this in some way. Those are three things that happen: denial, dismissal, and blame, that create shame. Why is that so bad? Because once that assault is really bad, you get hurt. That could take a lifetime, generations. But when it is witnessed in a way that plants in this child's mind that this is not a big, this didn't happen, what the hell is wrong with me, the child thinks. I'm making this up. What's wrong with me? Dismissal? Why am I making such a big deal about this? Why am I having body problems? Why am I yelling? Why am I stopped eating? Why am I throwing up? How come I'm feeling this way? How come I'm depressed? All this stuff is happening. What's wrong with me happens. Or somebody says, you screwed up. Oh my gosh, I'm causing these things. In that child's psyche becomes this planted notion, something is wrong with me. And that notion is so hard to dislodge. And when it's lodged in early, around the very heavy violation, and something around witnesses it, sees that event in those ways, denial, dismissal, blame, that child takes in a belief about themselves that something is wrong with me. And they don't walk around saying to people, I was violated by a priest. They walk around saying, what's wrong with me? And they go to therapists saying, what's wrong with me? And they go to religious groups saying, help me, heal me, fix me. They don't go to religious groups saying, are there violators here? Are there perpetrators here? What has been done about that? They go saying, what's wrong with me? They don't go to therapists saying, I was violated. They say, why am I screwed up? Why am I sensitive? Why am I overdramatic? Why am I attracting bad things? People come with that, and that attitude is so deeply ingrained that it's hard to dislodge. It's harder to dislodge than the damn freaking abuse. Abuse is hard. years maybe. But that value system, that belief system about oneself is so potent that the child comes to believe that they get out of touch with their selves. It's an annihilating force, shame. You don't exist. There's something wrong with you essentially. It's not just a feeling. I don't like myself. I'm criticized. Somebody criticizes me. David, I don't like you. I feel bad about myself. I'm talking about a whole different thing. And in my book, given that description, there's no such thing as a good shame. There's good guilt meaning I really did something. I should be accountable, feel bad. Shame is an annihilating experience. It doesn't help anything. It annihilates the person. It happens around abuse scenes. Okay, that's some of my passion about shame. So, I wrote, more infuriating than the violence is the shame. That is a violence. More infuriating are systems like the Catholic Church that show these children what their lives are really worth. I was really angry when I wrote this. This is a lot to say. Expendable. Dear children are expendable. Why? Because when we tell you that didn't happen or something's wrong with you, it means your life and what you're going through is irrelevant. I don't care about the blood I'm seeing. I walk by. Less than nothing, a problem for what are children, a problem for priests who might get outed as pedophiles. Let's deal with the church says, let's deal with this problem of the child. What's the problem? The problem is the priests are going to get in trouble. The problem is the church is going to get in trouble. The problem is not the child. I'm not saying every priest feels this way, but the church's basic attitude can't be overlooked. We can't say, as India says, toxic shame, soul slaying. We can't say, oh, it's just some people. Not when it's so systemic. We have thousands of people in Pennsylvania. Folks, you have to hold the system accountable. You can't say some are like that, some not. You have to. The child's a problem for a so-called moral institution that speaks for life while breeding and housing perpetrators with impunity. What hypocrisy. Okay. James Baldwin, I wrote yesterday, said something about racism in America. I'm not trying to leave the topic of child abuse and child sexual abuse to talk about racism, but James Baldwin knows something about humanity. And I want to bring his thought in here because he says it more powerfully than I can imagine saying it. He says about white America, I could say this about the church, we could say this about other systems. This is a crime, and I want to apply this now, James Baldwin, thank you. You let me use your words for this crime. This is a crime of which I accuse my country and my countrymen and women, for which neither I, nor time, nor history will ever forgive them. There's a big discussions about forgiveness these days. If you can dislodge your ideas, there's good forgiveness, there's bad forgiveness. Feel what he's saying and why one would say it. Don't get caught there. I'll have a discussion with you later. I've had them about forgiveness and why yes and why not. This is a crime for which neither I nor history will ever forgive them, that they have destroyed and are destroying thousands of lives and do not know it. Am I saying the church doesn't know it? Not exactly. They know the abuses, but they don't exactly know. They're not looking in the eye of the devastation clearly. Some people are not. The system blinds itself to that kind of thing. They have destroyed and are destroying hundreds of thousands of lives and do not know it and not want to know it. Here's the statement that I love about Baldwin. It is not permissible that the authors of devastation, in this case the Catholic Church, I know there's other people, there's other religious institutions, there's other organizations that are abusive. It needs to be said, and we need to name the Catholic Church right now. That's what's in the limelight. It's not permissible that the authors of devastation should be also innocent. It is innocence which constitutes the crime. What does he mean by innocence? Innocence means, I don't see it, I don't know it, I'm good. We're not really that bad. We're really a good institution with bad people. We really have good motives. Innocence meaning I don't grapple with the shadow of my organization, with the shadow of my being. Yes, I am an organization that has goodness and violence. Some people would call that evil. And hatred and violence to children without caring, without taking consideration. I am also made of that. To not be innocent means to know what one is capable of, one has in them. You can't bypass that by saying I'm a good person. You have to say I'm good and bad. Because if I don't say I'm good and bad, and I am capable of incredible love and incapable of incredible violence and hurt, then I'm going to let myself out of the ethical problem of being a human being who's capable of these kind of things. I don't get to do that. I don't get to do that as a therapist. I don't get to do that as a white person. I don't get to do that as a male. I don't get to do that as a partner of a person I love. I don't get to say that. If I have a client who says, I don't always trust therapists. I'll need to trust you, David, because I want to work with you. I say, no, you need not trust anybody, including especially me right now. Don't be innocent. I will do my best. Check me out. Test me. Look for my misses. Go slower. Work on the trust-distrust problem. Don't banish it because I'm a therapist. Don't banish it because I'm a priest. Don't banish it because I write a book. Don't banish it. If you have distrust, hold that distrust as a sacred thing of yours. That's what I mean to be responsible for one's shadow, to not be innocent anymore. Okay, I said some other things about what I think the church should say. And I said this, I said they should say, we have lost our bearings, we have sold our souls. They have sold their souls for a mess of pottage, the Bible says. They have sold their souls to protect perpetrators. That's what they did. Okay. I want to talk about shame now, because that's my hunger to talk about, my calling, I should say, to talk about. Other people will talk about other issues that are also important. I want to talk about shame because the church has borne witness to the violence of its members, of its clergy, of its priests, of its bishops, of everybody in the church has borne witness to that. How have they borne witness? Has there been this denial and dismissal and blame? Yes, it has to be said. I want to tell you some details. I wrote down the phrase, can I get a witness? Do you know that? In the church, we say, can I get a witness? You damn well you can. I'm going to be one. Other people are going to be one. The Pennsylvania grand jury was one. The Pennsylvania attorney general was one. And more. Yes, let's witness. What is the current witness like? Here it goes. I'm going to first start with denial. Here's a piece of data. Several bishops, including Bishop David A. Zubik of Pittsburgh, he rejects the idea that the church has concealed abuse. So we haven't concealed any abuse. There was no cover-up going on. No cover-up. We know this is not true. The documents they got from the church talk about moving priests to different I forget what they call that, to different areas where they're not being blamed anymore, where they're saying, let's not prosecute. They're doing all kinds of things to cover up. The cover-ups are intense. Denial. There's no cover-up going on. This is a bishop now who's saying this. He says there's no cover-up. Then what happens to the child psyche, the thousands and hundreds of thousands of children, now adults, still children, all the ages? What happens to the psyche? There's no cover-up going on. Shame potentially happens. I wrap that child's psyche in, nothing's being covered up. If you're thinking of it, it must be wrong because everything's out in the open, you see. Oh, really? It's out in the open. Well, I'm thinking something happened to me, but let me look. It was not nobody's speaking about it. It must be me. This is so dangerous. That's so dangerous. Hey, Jennifer and Janice. No cover-up. Systematic cover-up, Janice. Thank you. There was one document where someone in the church says, don't inform the community of the real reasons behind removing an accused priest. They made this statement. Look, we're going to move some of these priests. Don't inform the community. Tell the community, treat the community like it's not happening. Something happened? Somebody got hit. Here's my example. Here's a person on the road. Car smashes that person. Tell everybody it didn't happen. That's not just in the child. Think of the families around that person who are needing to believe that child, who are also grown up, raised in a system of shame, denial, and dismissal. Well, I don't know. Nothing's really happened. They moved the priest. My child did say something. I should be awake to that. But let's say I'm not. I'm an imperfect parent. I'm a parent raised in a shamed environment, a shamed atmosphere, a shamed church, a shamed family. Now the priest goes away. I'm thinking, maybe that was something real. Nah, there's no corrupt. They're saying that's not the reason. No one's saying that. The church then has to be accountable for not giving the parents, the families, the teachers information so that when they see that child starting to starve themselves or gain 50 pounds in 2 months or whatever they're doing or stop talking or all the signs and signals, I'm not giving those people the chance to bear witness, to say, I think I know something's going on here. That child was in that parish, and that particular parish has that priest that was moved. Now the whole community doesn't get to see. And if I see, it makes a difference. If a child is abused, the biggest factor in a child's healing, whatever healing means, being able to become functional and deal with the difficulties of that kind of violence. We'll call that healing for the moment. The biggest predictor of that is whether one person at least bore, I call loving witness, not denial, dismissal, and blame, treated that child like something happened. Oh my God, I'm furious. I'm going to do something about this. I'm hurt. I'm going to not let you, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to go confront the priest. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to have a reaction that looks like somebody I loved was hurt. That is removed. The possible healing of that child. So now we have a child, that possibility of the family to bear witness is pulled away and made less. That child could go through, rather than 5-10 years of therapy, a lifetime of hell until their children or children's children 2 generations later start realizing something happened. That's the difference between the possibility of a witness and a not a witness. A church saying, everybody, this has happened. Keep an eye out. Something has happened. We pull that away. That's not a minor thing. It's a profound violence. In one case, Reverend Ernest Pione, I think his name is, a priest, was caught molesting boys in Pittsburgh. A pastor interviewed, tried to stop the police from arresting that person. The district attorney at the time, Robert Masters, wrote to the diocese. He said, stop the investigation. Let's prevent an unfavorable publicity for the diocese. Let's prevent an unfavorable publicity. Let's remove the possibility that people will believe what's happening and then respond as if something terrible happened. Because if we know if that person's on the street in my car accident thing and they're bleeding, something has to happen. Triage first, then this, then that. Then out of school for 3 months, 3 years. Something has to happen. I've worked with clients who've been abused by priests. The healing that needs to happen starts with the witnessing at the first, and that witnessing removed is such a fierce violence. That's the point I want to make. Someone wrote, the grand jury said the church followed, quote, a playbook for concealing the truth. Denial. Thanks, Lucy and Catherine. Good to have you here. Denial. Dismissal. The second shame factor, denial, dismissal. In a statements released Tuesday, it was yesterday, Pennsylvania's Catholic bishops called for prayers for victims and for the church and promised greater openness and said they're doing things already that's making the church safer. Check it out now. Sounds good to some people. Let's have prayers for the victims. Let's have prayers for me as the church. Sounds good. Make us better. I got that. Prayers can be a good thing. But think of who we're talking to now. Think of who we're bearing witness to. I'm not just thinking about the general. Yes, pray for the church if that's your mode. Yes, yes, yes. But think of this as a witnessing. Here's a child. They're hurt. Pray for yourself and your friends and for us. Whoa! Think of the kind of energy I'm putting around that person. Think of what I'm doing to their organic reaction that might be fury, hatred, vengeance, screaming. Pray for me too. Put me in your heart. Yeah, great idea. Someday, maybe. But think about that. If I'm the church, if I'm a person, and you say, David, you have abused me, I say, oh my gosh. I don't say, please pray for me. I say, tell me what happened. If that person's not angry at me, I'll say, I am furious with myself. I don't want to do anything to make them feel like their natural organic reactions ought to be dismissed, gotten rid of, are not quite right. You ought to be in a loving, open-hearted attitude. I want to say, give it to me. I am in the hot seat. I erred. I shouldn't be let off the hook. That's not about guilt, hating myself, trying to make myself a bad person. That's about witnessing you and saying yes to your response. That's the responsibility I now have. Where's the sober responsibility? This is what I have to do. Where's the, oh my gosh, I got this report. I'm not saying pray for victims, pray for the church. I'm saying here I am, a representative of this body, part of the body that's not seeing, part of the body that's abused people, part of the body that's concealing. I am part of that body. I am standing there taking some responsibility. I'm not just some other person, a person who didn't do it, a better Christian or this or that. I am a person in this faith who's bearing witness, who's taking some responsibility. Oh my gosh, I have failed you. I have hurt you. I understand your wrath. I have a long, difficult, maybe impossible road of repentance. I have that. That's the responsible party says that. When I hear somebody says they got hurt by a psychologist, I don't say, hey, I'm better. Those are bad psychologists out there. I say, yes, I understand. Sometimes I say this depending on the conversation. As a therapist, let me say I'm sorry. My field is making these mistakes. Can you follow? Somebody has to stand there. If you're a child as a perpetrator, like some of these priests are psychologically, then you kind of say, somebody else. But if you're an elder, I don't mean chronologically age-wise, a person who can bear some responsibility, then you say, I am here. You can focus your energy on me. I made the error. I want to hear. I can take it. I am part of that organization. Okay, more dismissal. They use words, these are quotes from church documents. The church called rape inappropriate contact. Can you hear the dismissal? Of course you can. They assign priests untrained in sexual abuse to investigate their colleagues. Can you hear the dismissal? I don't really need somebody who really knows what they're doing, who's an outsider. I'll just have one of our colleagues. If they don't have to know about sexual abuse, that's fine. Can you hear the dismissal? Now that system has a person coming in. Well, we asked somebody to investigate. We didn't witness by telling the community. We hired people. We brought in people who can actually police us properly. It doesn't have to be the law enforcement. Maybe it should. That's another debate. It's outsiders who can see. People who are experts in this area. I don't tell you that. I don't say that's how serious it is. I say, well, just have one of our friends. I'm minimizing it, but it's a dismissal. It's a minimization. Another church document said, there's been inappropriate communication with children. Can you hear the dismissal? Don't take it as such a big deal. It's not that big a deal. Let's not treat it like a big event. What does that do to the psyche and the possibility of witnessing that? Inappropriate contact. That doesn't sound that bad. Why am I freaking out? Do I have an anxiety disorder? Maybe you do, by the way. But can you hear what happens to people? The pathologization, meaning I'm looking at myself as a sick person rather than an injured person by another person. That itself is a sickness. That's outrageous. Some of the cases were a long time ago. The church has lobbied to not change the statute of limitations. Statute of limitations says abuses that happened more than a certain number of years ago can't be prosecuted. The church is lobbying for that. Great, they're protecting themselves. But can you hear, the statement is, if it happened more than a certain years, we agree with the law. If it's with the criminal law, if this happened more than a certain number of years ago, we think that should be addressed. It's not really a matter anymore. Maybe it didn't happen. A person can't prove it. Maybe it's not that important anymore. The ignorance of how violence carries over for 3 generations, we know that. Okay. Denial, dismissal, like the long beard. Hey, thank you, Clint. It grew in and I decided not to cut my beard. Denial, dismissal, the last thing is blame. Some people call that gaslighting, blaming the victim, saying they're weird or screwed up. I just want to say some things that I have heard from talking to victims of child abuse, child sexual abuse, church sexual abuse. I've heard children called seductresses. Am I just some kind of screwed up sexuality? Am I a Freudian complex looking for sex in other places? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my sexuality? Am I evil? Maybe I am. Maybe I should go to a doctor. Maybe I should go to a psychiatrist. Maybe I should get institutionalized. Something's wrong with me. I'm evil. I'm a seductress. I've heard clients say they were called liars. I have had clients say that they were called evil by church officials when they came forward. You're evil. You're bringing in evil. You're a messenger from Satan. That's who you are. Think of that violence. the assault, of the sexual abuse. Now I'm planting in your mind with the authority of the church, and that may have a lot of authority in your system, meaning you may believe it and take it in all the way. Wow. Very hard to change that idea. I've heard people called unchristian. I've heard people called whores. Children told that by the church when they came forward. Yesterday when I was, hey Regina and Janice, thank you Janice for staying with that, and other people I haven't been watching the comments. Marion, thank you. This needs to be shared. You cannot hold this as one person. Maybe you can. I cannot hold it as one person, but it's meant to be held by a culture. It's not a moment to say, well, there are good Christians, there are bad Christians. It's not about that. It's not that there are and aren't. It's not the question. We want to bear witness. We don't want to ask people, please see me as different. We want to say, I see you. And if you see me as a representative, that's the way it goes. When people talk about the violence of Jews in the Middle East, I also see anti-Semitism at times, but at times I look and I hear their valid complaint. I'm not in Israel. I'm not a pro-Israel government. I'm not pro-Israel's government stance towards Palestinians, but I say I'm a Jew. I know about Jewish violence. I know about Jewish trauma and how that's taken out and unresolved and taken out on innocent people. I'm responsible too. I don't say, oh, I'm one of the good Jews. No. Why? It's not about whether I'm good or not. It's about being an elder. We need elders. We need grown-ups in the room who can say, I see what happens when somebody takes a hit, and I can stand there, and they may shake me a bit. That's okay. This is what it takes. You pay a little tax. One of my therapists, Mark Schupak, years ago, said when somebody confronts somebody around abuse, social abuse, we were talking about racism, then you pay a tax. The tax is you stand there and you take some hits, even if it's not personally correct for you, because somebody should stand there and handle that and have the psychic power to deal with it, or the resources to go and tell my partner, I feel so bad about the criticisms people take me, but not push that back on the person who's been hurt at the moment. Find another way of holding yourself, David. Find another way of holding yourself, Christians and Catholics and church people, and then to say, this is not me. Take the responsibility, the spiritual and moral true authority to say, I'm here. And I do represent some of those ideas. I'm here. Last night I began to think about the article after I wrote this thing on Facebook. People came forward. I began to think, Pennsylvania, thousands of people. Oh my gosh, Pennsylvania is one state in the United States. Then a woman from South Africa wrote on my Facebook post and wrote about the violence there. And then a woman from Ireland wrote on my Facebook post, and I thought about the violence there. And then a person wrote from the Netherlands and spoke about the priest abuse there and how it's dealt with. And another person from Norway wrote and spoke to me and contacted me. And then a person from Canada wrote and spoke to me. And one from Australia. And another one from India. And another one from the UK. Whoa! My mind started blowing further out. Oh my gosh. Holding the Pennsylvania data. 300 priests. Thousands come forward. More than 1,000 come forward. Thousands that won't come forward. Think of the scope. Can you see why I'm thinking of a system? Can you see why there's no church person innocent in the Baldwinian way? I'm not one of those. I'm innocent. This is not happening. There's goodness also. Can you see why that's true? And can you see why none of us can be innocent? Because we're all witnesses. I'm witnesses here. The reason why I'm doing this tonight, given all my exhaustion and finding my passion, is because the witnessing must happen. I can't let that go. There are people on my thread who want somebody that they hold with some level of respect to speak. I don't have a choice in that way. I have a choice. I understand that choice stuff. But I don't, you see. The calling has to be made. How well I do or not, irrelevant. Somebody has to speak. I wrote on somebody's comment, I said, I was so furious last night, I wrote, right now I'd rather pluck out any blindness in my eyes than call myself a healer, an activist, a person with a beating heart. To not see this, I said, I would rather pluck out any blindness in my eyes than call myself a healer, an activist, or even a person with a beating heart to not see. Yeah, Catherine, you just wrote, we're all witnesses, worldwide, millions of children. Friends, thank you for your ears. If you're moved by this, if you feel like this message has some value, witness, share it with other people. Tell your friends, engage in a dialogue, challenge people who want to be a little bit more innocent as best you can. Not in a way that's too much for you. Challenge people, open it up. Realize that some people want to tell their stories. Go to my Facebook page, check it out. You'll see story after story after story of people, mostly women. As you know, women are, well, speak out more about abuse at its best. I'm not going to talk about sexism and patriarchy at the moment. It deserves its own thing, and I've talked about that. Listen to the women speaking there, telling their stories, and the horror and the anger and the outrage and the fury. Go there. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, Lucy. Bear witness. Share it. I love you all. Good night.